Hey guys, this is Eric Weingartner with Weingartner Racing. This is part 2 of porting an LS823 head. And today we're going to do some pocket porting. I'm going to show you what you need to grind. I'll show you the exact measurements and we'll define some areas. Before I begin, I need to start with this. If you are tempted to put in the comments you talk too much, you have no business porting heads, because if you do not have the patience to make it through a 20-minute video, if that, you do not have the patience for 40 hours of grinding on a set of heads. Besides, you came to watch this video to learn how to port, so you need to listen. Anyway, let's get started. Today we're only going to deal with just the intake, and we're going to deal with the bowl and the throat. So I'm going to define each area real quick. So the bowl is the first thing I'll grind, and I'll show you as I'm grinding it. What I define that is, this is the guide. If we went directly across, so imagine I make a line that goes straight across here, that would be called the bowl. The throat would be right below the valve seat here. So when I put my, when I put this in, which is what I showed in the first video, if I put that in, the first thing it snags on should be the throat. So the bowl would be here. The throat would be up here where the valve job kind of ends. So snags here, then it flares out bigger to the bowl. Now, I'll go ahead and point out a couple of things for this. We're talking about an 823 head here, which is an LS3 head. The measurements I give you, you can't really apply to some different heads. Each head's kind of different on how big you need to make the bowl or how small. And also it's kind of application dependent too. So for instance, if you're a really low RPM deal and you're trying to get the most amount of torque, you don't want a lot of variations in size throughout the port to keep the velocity pretty much consistent through the port. So we make it small. On a high RPM deal, that's not really going to work because the air is going to go too fast and it's going to jump the short side. So in that case, we actually make it bigger. So it's not universal. So I point that out because when I show you the measurements that I'm going to use to grind this so that you can do it at home, it's something more along the lines of what a basic person would do. So this isn't like an all-out porting is what I'm doing. I should also point out a couple other things. Some of you will probably be like, you didn't take measurements or tell me the push rod pinch and what those sizes should be and all that. Well, the thing is, with an LS3 head, in all fairness, it's too large for 90% of what you're doing in certain areas. So for instance, this is the one that's used for the dyno mule. I took measurements. That's push rod pinch. That's this area right here. It measures 3.08 inches cross section. That's huge. For most of you, you will never max that out. You just won't. So there's no sense even grinding too much in that area at all, really, because it's too big. But if you look at the other measurements, like our throat, this is from the factory is 89%. And then we've got the bowls at 96%. And the short side area is 2.87. So these areas right through here is actually the spots that's going to gain you, because that's where you need to get some area, not here. Most of your flow actually comes from 1 inch before and after the seat anyway. So what I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to set the bowl at, I think I'm going to do it 98% of the throat, of the valve. And let me explain too why I picked that. Again, for most of you, you're putting it on your 6 liter, maybe you got a 408, you're not turning a whole lot of RPMs. And I say that, you may be turning 65, which to you sounds like a lot. To me, 75, 8,000, and you're starting to get up there. So I'm going to go 98% of the valve. So in other words, you take the valve size, which in this case is 2.165, times 0.98, and that will tell me my measurement I'm going to have for the bowl. And that's what I will set that up. So what I'll do is, which I don't remember what it is top of my head, but I'll show you when I get to start grinding. I'll take these calipers, or these inside mics, or whatever they are. I forgot what the name of this is. I'm going to use my micrometer. I'm going to measure and set it up with this. So I think I actually brought it over. Yeah, I did. Okay, so I'll take this and I'll set it up. So get my calculator out, 2.165 times 0.98%, whatever that is, which is probably gonna be like 2.12 or something like that. I'll set my calipers up to that, set these to the same size, and I'll start grinding the bowl first. And I'll show you as I'm grinding it so you can get an idea. But that's across here. When I'm grinding, because I'm not going to do a time lapse or nothing, if this is my burr that I'm going to have in here, I'll be starting all the way back here. So even though the bowl's here, I'll start pretty far deep in here and start working this way. Now, don't forget, do not knock out that lump there. Do not do that. So I'll avoid that, but I'll start on this side and coming this way. A couple things that help you. So here's your tips to help you as you're grinding on these heads. If you notice, the entrance is a rectangle. Okay? The exit, our valve, is a circle. So there's a change in shape. And I point that out because typically on most aftermarket heads and any good heads, we transition the shape about this area. GM didn't, so it's still a square here. So you're like, why are you telling me that? If you're trying to make this square into a circle, what you need to do is you don't go back and forth, because what you end up doing is the burr sits here and here longer. So you're digging out here and here. Instead, you start here. You're grinding here. Because this is a square pretty much. So what I want to do is I want to make this into a bulge and push this out to make it a circle. Because it's hard to capture on camera, but this is a square. It's square, then it circles right here. So I want this grind here to make the oval. Now I usually start here and I take the least amount out from this side than I do this side, because remember there's a small distance between these two. So yes, I'll make the bowl bigger here because I want it to be, and I'd like to have more here, but I'm not hogging it out most of the material from here. I'll take it more from this. So this, let's say I'll remove 40 thou and the rest will come from over here, because I do need to keep a minimum distance between this. And I'll get to that when I'm in the pouring room and I show you. Anyway, that's the beginning. Let me get to grinding so I can get to showing you. Okay, here's me having gotten the bowl ground. So this is the gauge, just so you can see what I'm talking about. Let me turn down the light just a bit. So anyway, right there across, so this is actually measured, so 98% was 1.21. So sorry, 2.121. So right there is 98%. Now it looks rough right now, and I understand this. So let me go ahead and take this out. Let me show you. Grab a burr here. This is what I started with, by the way. This is the 1/2 inch oval. I started on this side, and I just started grinding here. Now, as you notice, I haven't thinned out the vein yet. Got a ways to go, and you can see more of the square part of the port right there. See how it's square designed here? Now we're in the oval. So when I go doing the throat, I'll actually dig this in. If you notice, see how I left all the way around? This probably, I don't know, I just eyeballing this, but usually about 3/8 all the way around before the seat, because that's where I'm going to blend my throat. So when you're doing the bowl, only bring it to about there. This way you have material when you blend your throat to get it right. And if you notice, it still looks like it's not perfectly round because that's not perfectly round. So this part that hasn't been ground, we're going to try fixing that in a minute. But anyway, so it's 98%, and you can kind of see what I've done. I only hit this part of the vein just so I can get my burr to work a little bit better and make the shape better, but that's it. You might ask, well, what'd you spray on it to get it? Remember, I told you in the first video, my flutes are wider apart, so they don't really clog. So I actually went in dry. I don't really ever hardly use fluid. So once I start cutting on these, it's dry until I feel it clog up. And I only had to spray it once. And I only spray just to drop on here, and it comes loose and does the rest. So that is your tip for that as well. When you use ones that look like this, or you have your, let's see if the camera captures it right. There we go. When they're much tighter together like this, they'll clog every time. You're gonna have to add WD-40 constantly. These make things look beautiful. They do not take out a lot of material. That takes out a lot of material. These just clog, and you can see it on there. It's already kind of clogged. And this is a low speed one I use for different purposes. So point is, that's what you need if you want to prevent clogging. Still going to clog, but you have to use less. So now what I'm going to do, before I ever go to throat, I'm going to actually thin this, get the vein the way I want it, and then I'll use a couple other things. So I'm going to thin the vein. I'll show you that, and I'll go to the next step. Okay, now you can see that I've got the vein all narrowed out, and it looks pretty, it looks better. It won't look perfect till it's all done. It's like a haircut. When they first start cutting, you look like crap. But anyway, it's all thinned out. I've noticed around the guide here, don't cut so much where you're thinning it out where it breaks through here, right? We want to leave the center, and I'm going to tell you why. If you ever have a valve job done after, that pilot usually sticks through here, and we center off the very center. If you cut off part of that, that guide wants to kick one way or the other. It's really hard to get it centered right. Not that it can't be, but just not great. Also, you're not gaining any flow doing that. And it also worsens the valve stability. So keep the center still That center circle right there, keep it. You could thin around it and taper it out. I've somewhat done that. I mean, honestly, it could be better. The other thing is you can still see it squared down here. See, it's like almost flat. Well, if I made the bowl bigger, and it's only 98%, but if you made it bigger, you could potentially get rid of some of that because you'd have this coming out further. Same with this side, and you'd get rid of some of that. Is it the end of the world? No, but again, I'm keeping this more conservative for what you guys are going to do. Next thing, I use this one. Now, this is a 5/8, and it's got more fluid, so this one will clog, as you can tell. But because it's bigger, and it'll blend out this stuff here. So I used that. Did I have to? No, you could have just kept using your 1/2 inch. But now I'm going to do the throat. The throat's going to be 1.97 up diameter. So from here across, 1.97. That's 91%. And where does that come from? Remember, take the valve, 2.165 times 0.91. You get 1.97. So it's 91% valve. The throat is. Do not attempt to do this on a stock valve job. So all these are cut. But if you try to do that on a stock valve job, you're actually going to reduce flow. So on a stock valve job, it might not go past 90. This, because I've got my nice 5 angle and it's more aggressive, the 91 is going to be perfect. I actually can go bigger, but for the purposes of this video, 91%. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that. And same thing, I'm going to take off, start here, take off less, and move over to here where I would take off more. Some of these angles will get removed. That's not a big deal. Just make sure you don't touch your seat. This is a junk head anyway because of the crack, so not a big deal for this, but I probably won't anyway. But just something to keep in mind. Here's what it looks like with the throat done. So it's still, I mean, it looks rougher than it is, and I should point that out. It will always look this way until you kind of either make it all uniform or whatnot. Because this is not beautiful. I mean, some of you are like, oh my gosh, it looks great. And I guess it depends on the camera angle. So for instance, right here, not bad. If I start turning it, you can see like different spots. Like actually, that's not bad. There's just, I guess because I'm a porter, so I see stuff. It's not perfect. But then again, it's also small. It's much easier to make things look the way they should when you make things larger because you could shape them the way you want. Aftermarket heads it's much easier too because they don't have a square shape that goes into a round shape. They made the transitions better. Factory didn't. Now, just to kind of show you, this is my tool. The idea is to get to go like this. You should slide in, slide out. This is a little tight, but I should point that out too. I forgot to mention that. But it should go like that. That's your throat. So it's a little tight, and the reason for it is this. Every time you screw things in with these calipers, this will move from time to time. You can tighten it up and stuff, but what I recommend is don't just adjust it once and never check it again. What you need to do is get your valve caliper back down here again and double check it and see how it doesn't fit through. It's fitting as tight as it does in the port. Because as you do this, from time to time, that will just a little bit out, and then you're out. So make sure you keep checking. Otherwise, when you first start, you'll be perfect. And when you get to your last one, you go and the throat ends up way larger than this, even though it's fine on this because you forgot to set it back on your deal. Not a big deal, just something to keep in mind. But that's all it is. The throat's going to be right there. It goes through. Try to keep it, don't do it this way. And some of you might be saying, well, what are you doing about the short side part? Because you didn't touch that throat part. You're correct, or the bowl side. Because that's when I do a different views when I'll start cutting that one. So when I'm actually doing the short side, that's when that gets done. So this is exactly the way I do it. So there you go. That should take you all weekend, because another suggestion is to do all of these. So first thing, do the bowls and do them all 8. So you do this head and then do the other head. Then the throat, or actually do the vein, do it on all 8. Then the throat on all 8. If you do that, it's probably going to take you a weekend. It's a good weekend. You're going to worth the work. And then you can tune in maybe the next week when I show you the next phase. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Remember, I do not port cast iron heads. You guys take care.